Welcome back to Wook Plus. Today we've got something special, an exclusive single drop from God Street Wine. We have Lo Faber with us. The song's called Weird Dream. It's officially out today on all your streaming platforms, and over on Bandcamp is where you should really go. So we're going to dive into it, get some of the backstory. Lo, welcome back.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
It's Weird Dreams. I love this. It's coming out for the first time being recorded, but it's been kicking around for years, right?
Yeah. It dates back to I think the first year of God Street Wine when we first formed as college students back in New York City. So 1989, I think.
You did. I heard a version. You played it on your most recent tour, and I was like, wow, it's just so fantastic. Well, why don't we get into a little bit about the backstory of it? New York City, late 80s.
Yeah.
Was a special place.
The first George Bush administration. David Dinkins was mayor, I believe. But yeah, that's where our band started out, and four out of the five of us were college students at Manhattan School of Music and NYU, and some of us were studying jazz in our various ways, and I was all about writing those complicated chords. If a chord only had 3 notes in it, it wasn't cool enough for me at that time. So there had to be an 11th and a 13th and various contrary motions going on, and I was thinking a lot about voicings, and I was full jazz nerding out in a word.
Reminds me of Dylan. I was older then. I'm younger than that now.
Right. Well, no, I think it's a phase. It's the fact that I'm not in that phase doesn't mean I don't still like you go through a phase and then maybe you get older and wiser and you keep like some of the good stuff from that phase. Maybe I don't know, but like then later in the 90s, like we sort of like went the other way, and I was like, I'm going to write a bunch of songs that are just like 1 or 2 chords now.
Which works. That's all you need sometimes. Don't bore us. Get to the chorus, right?
Yeah, I mean, so on this album, we really went back to some of that early material because I noticed, like, yeah, we did bring Weird Dream and a couple other things back at those last shows last year, and we can actually play the stuff better now. Like that, you got to play it with a little more restraint, and when we were 23 or whatever, we kind of, the tempos were too fast. The playing was a little aggressive and a little too hyper, at least when I listen back to it now. So when you can play it a little more calmly and allow it to breathe, some of those complex chords really work better, to me, at least, hopefully. So the album has a bunch of tunes kind of in that direction.
And I guess for you, there's maybe a process of, I know that you said that like the bass line was written note for note originally for Weird Dream when you did it. And then over time.
Yeah. And well, the bass lines, a lot of the early GSW tunes, I would write out the bass line for Dan to play. And part of that was just my control freakiness. Like I want to control every note that everybody plays, which that's definitely was an aspect. But another aspect was that, I think we've talked about this. Tomo and I were reggae freaks growing up. We loved every obscure album out of Tough Gong Studios we could get a hold of. And there's a lot of great reggae tracks where the bass and guitar play a bass line in unison. And I love that sound. A bunch of our early material like Fortress of Solitude, Electrocute, you got a bass and guitar playing that line in unison. Weird Dream was the same initially, but eventually, I decided, let's let it go. Let's break free of the shackles of all these written bass lines, and let's let Dan do his thing. And it's good. It's a good change.
It is.
30 years later.
It is. Well, why don't let's not keep everybody waiting. And why don't we spin the song right now, and
Spin it up.
we'll get into a little bit about the whole album on the other side, a little more about the song, and some tour dates you got coming up. We'll see you on the other side.
Someone's cooking. They're stirring up some nasty medicine. Mama's sleeping till the sun goes down. When the clock strikes midnight, she'll be downtown. And I'm a crazy Cherokee, just like on TV. Just another soldier in your army. Do you think I'm real or just a lie? Your tears would cut me like a sharp knife. Why don't you stay back till the shooting's over? There'll be blood and fire in your big black eyes. There'll be bursts of color and some fancy action. Won't you close your eyes? You'll be deep in your heavenly garden till you wake up, wake up, wake up to another wet dream. Check me out, I'm so good looking. I'm walking in circles like a picture. Neon ladies, crazy whispers. They're wearing that face that gives me shivers. And I'm the king of the other world, says it up there on the wall. Tearing up the streets after the rainfall. I hear knocking, someone's coming. We're gonna bolt the door till we get that phone call. Why don't you stay back till the shooting's over? There'll be blood and fire in your big black eyes. There'll be bursts of color and some fancy action. Won't you close your eyes? You'll be deep in your heavenly garden till you wake up, wake up, wake up to another weird dream. Another weird dream.
All right, that's fantastic, Lo. I mean, you can hear your influences coming through, but also it's such a synthesis of those influences and what will become, I guess, for lack of a better term, the God Street Wine sound.
Wow. Well, thanks. No, really. Appreciate it. Yeah, when I record stuff, I'm like, wait, when I'm recording it, I'm always like, this is the greatest thing that humanity has ever accomplished. And then when I'm done with it, I was like, why did I think that was good? Uh, so
This is the creative process.
I'll tell you, it's funny about this tune in particular. I always kind of felt like it wasn't quite finished. It's like, it's just an impression. Like, there's something kind of like underwritten about it to me. Like, does it need another verse? Does it? I don't know. I wrote it for. I also arranged this for big band when I was in college at the time, and my big band instructor, who was the great David Berger, who used to arrange all jazz at Lincoln Center with Wynton Marsalis. I mean, he was like top tier arranger. He taught me so much, and I arranged this for big band on those huge score sheets, with 26 staves, writing it all out by pencil. There was no notation software back in the day. Anyway, I arranged Weird Dream for big band, and he gave me an A- and said, not weird enough.
Did that make you want to put something else in it?
It made me be like, well, that's just the title. I wasn't intending it to be particularly weird. It should have been called Fairly Normal Dream, actually.
Right, right. Well, but the dream is describing the city. I mean, I think it paints a great portrait of New York at that moment.
Yeah. I'm glad you hear that, actually, because yeah, New York was different then. It had a griminess to it, and I grew up in Jersey, so I would go into the city, take the train in New Jersey Transit on weekends. You could drink beer as a teenager in New York. That was like the big one of the big selling points. And you could go to music. You could do all kinds of fun things that you couldn't just do out in New Jersey. And so I got my driver's license. The day I got my driver's license, I turned 17. I got my driver's license that day. And a buddy and I drove into Manhattan. We drove to the Lower East Side, Alphabet City. And there was a rumor that the Talking Heads were doing a secret show. They were my favorite band at that time, along with many other people's. I mean, they were huge.
Understandably.
And there was a rumor they were going to be playing at this Lower East Side club. And so we went. The first day I got my driver's license in my stick shift, light blue, metallic Volkswagen Bug, and drove down to Alphabet City, which was absolutely not a place where an innocent kid from New Jersey should be going at that time. And I got
doing uptown, white boy.
I got confused about the directions of the streets, and I ended up driving the wrong way down East 3rd Street. I think it was between Avenues B and C. But anyway, the whole neighborhood is like out on the stoops, because it's summertime. And the whole neighborhood, it felt like, was yelling at me that I was driving the wrong way. Hundreds of people. A cop pulled me over. You have to be really stupid to get pulled over in New York City. And I got pulled over, and the cop took one look at my license, saw that it had been issued that day, and he said, "If I ever see you in this neighborhood again, I'm going to take this license and throw it in the sewer."
You said, okay, did you ask him where the spot was?
Oh no, we had already established that the rumor was false. And we went to this like very shady dance club, and this like 6'6" Rasta guy came out, and he was like, "There ain't no fucking show here tonight." Like, you idiots. And yeah, that was my first experience driving in Manhattan. So like it can only go up from there.
It's crazy how New York at one time had an exodus of people that all moved out to all these exurbs and suburbs of the city. All the property prices dropped, and then all the kids started moving back in because it was cheap to live in the city.
That gentrification of like Tribeca and Soho, that was already well underway at that time. I mean, it wasn't what it later became at all, but it was still happening. I mean, even in the 80s, New York was starting to get Julianified. It wasn't the same as the 70s, where it's like, oh, there's going to be a blackout and everybody's just going to loot every television from every store. And so Weird Dream, just to try to get back to my song, it's just sort of a collection of impressions of like, oh, maybe there's some drug dealing going on over there, and oh, maybe I'm having sex with someone, and maybe my mom's making some good food that I can smell. I'll throw together a few images and have this little imaginary thing with a funky groove, and that's all there is to it, really.
And that kind of lyricism became huge later on with like Nirvana and that very stream of thought kind of lyrics and things like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, yeah, less is more. Like, I mean, that's really true about Kurt Cobain's lyrics. Like, he just gives you some little bits and pieces. I'm not saying that I do that as well as he does.
The most engaging lyrics are ones that you fill in. You can listen to Jack Straw 1,000 times because you're never really sure what's going on.
What is going on? Exactly. Yeah. Oh, we share the women. We can share the wine. That sounds good. I'm up for that.
Right. Let's party.
Or am I? Do I want to share the women? The more when I think about it, maybe I'm not so sure about that.
Right. It was a wild time back then.
Yeah.
So the song is this is the second single. The first single you released was a new composition, which is the only new one on the album. The other 4 songs that are going to be on it are also from before, and Mantelocking is a huge thing that has been kicking around for years. I guess you took that as the title of the album.
Yeah.
And you guys really went for it, huh? From what I'm hearing.
Yeah, Manteloking, by the way.
Yeah, Manteloking. Okay.
You can edit out the mispronunciation, or I don't care.
Yes.
But yeah, Manteloking is a town on the Jersey Shore, where I have some family history, and when we were living in Ossining, I was also starting to listen to the first couple albums by the boys from Burlington, Junta and Lawn Boy.
Right.
And I remember listening to those long written instrumentals on like Fluffhead, I think, and Reba. And I'm just being like, wow, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do some of that shit.
Right.
So Manteloking was one of like 3 or 4 attempts on my part to write something really long and instrumental and prog rocky in that Fish style. Yeah, very much so.
And that's a direct, I'm sure you can draw a line back to what you did in college and you're arranging for big bands and things like that. It gets you thinking in those terms, I guess.
That was part of it, and part of it was like the influences that we all had, like Zappa, some of the prog rock like Genesis, Yes, and so on. And it's like we could tell that Fish was also influenced by those things. Like we were influenced by the same things, but Fish also had they had their really own unique way of sort of reconstituting those influences in their sort of endearingly quirky way. And so it was like, yeah, you can take all these influences, but you also put together, and it still shows your personality. It's not like just being derivative.
Right. I always liken Fish to being more like English psychedelic music, whereas somebody like Widespread Panic was more akin to Grateful Dead kind of psychedelic music, where it was groove based as opposed to quirky lyrics and structured songs. Like the Nice or early Genesis and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Widespread Panic was also, they were Southern, so they were going to be
Right.
more at Almonds,
They were
more
listening
kind
to
of.
the Almonds in their cribs. This is the second single. You guys are going to do a third single, I guess, coming up towards the end of the month.
Yeah, we're dribbling out 3 singles and then the full album. And the full album's only 6 songs because Maniloking is like the length of 3 songs, basically.
Right. Right. Is it going to come out on vinyl?
Limited edition vinyl only at the shows. Some people who are far away have been like, I don't think it's right that you guys are only selling them at the shows. And I'm like, please just find a buddy, find someone you know who can go to the shows, reach out on Facebook, whatever, get someone to buy you one at the shows, because we just don't have it's too hard to set up a whole mail order thing.
Oh yeah, the infrastructure, not unless you have it in place. I mean, I could barely keep up.
We have a merch store that's like all printed on demand. You order a
Right.
T-shirt and it gets made somewhere, and we don't have to like have a storage locker full of T-shirts anymore. So
Right, a whole box of mediums you'll never sell.
exactly, who can tell what size color combinations are going to sell out?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, and that's March 7th. The actual album will come out, and you're going to be able to get.
That's the first day of our little mini tour. So we got Philadelphia on the 7th. That's the first show. Then DC on the 8th. And then the following weekend, we're doing Boston at the Sinclair. We're doing Nectar's up in Burlington, which will be I guess a pilgrimage of sorts. Never played there before. Mm-hmm. And we're doing Bearsville Theater, Pete Shapiro's new place up in Woodstock. New old place, really.
I'm amazed that you've never played Nectar's.
Yeah. No, back in the day when we used to go to Burlington, we used to play this place that was called Katie Churchill's, and it was a great venue. We had a lot of fun there. Uptown, upstairs venue. The load-in was terrible, but the crowd was always great.
Yeah. And that's when you're glad you're a guitarist, though, and not the drummer, or God help the keyboardist who has more than one keyboard trying to load it.
Right. And when we were playing in there, Nectar's it existed, and I went there sometimes because they had great gravy fries, but they weren't having music, as far as I know.
All right. That is the legend of the fries.
Yeah, the fries were good.
Well, all right. Let's wrap this up. Anything else you want to throw out? We're going to have links to all the stuff. The tour date's coming up March 7th. Make sure you get out to see them. I'm trying to get to the DC show, maybe up to the Philly show. I was talking to Matt the other day. I gave him a call, and he's like, yeah, you got to come. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, well, let me know when you're going to come so we can hang, because it would be nice to have an in-person hang. We've done this, so many times now, I feel like.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, definitely. Can I grab a beer or something like that? But everybody out there watching, make sure that you follow us on our socials. Check out all the links. Try to get out to the show. If not, if you can't get the album, go to the Bandcamp. You can throw them a couple bucks there and get the digital files downloaded. If you're still doing Spotify or whatever, make sure you listen to it 10 times so they can get that bump.
There you go. Very well said.
That's what we want. You got to get 1,000 spins, I think, to even get enough money to get a hamburger. So,
it's we're not really doing it for the money at this point anyway. We're doing it. Right. We're just a bunch of old guys.
All the right reasons.
Trying to pass the time.
Right. Well, I mean, if the last shows you did are any indication, you guys have a lot left in the tank, and I think that you have new ground to break. I think you guys could, Maybe try to write more than one new song. Write a couple. Do an EP. Throw a scrum.
That is definitely happening, Kevin. I want to tell you. I just don't want to. I don't want to tell you too much about it, but yeah, you're.
That's a good tease. It's happening as a good tease.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Lo, and we'll see you around the way.